The day is here, kiddos. We've all been waiting, and it's finally arrived. The patch meant to be some real fixing done to this ship that's otherwise been held together by duct tape and hope. And hey, look, duct tape and hope can keep you from sinking, but some welding is what gets you out of the harbor. I rolled out of bed at 4 a.m. in preparation to giving you an accurate representation of the changes through personal experience, and well, after 5 or so hours, I can tell you that I have done that. You'll be getting the rundown of all the changes and the effects the changes have on the game, intended or not, then an overall take as to whether this is good or bad. But you don't want your time wasted, I don't want to waste your time, so without further ado, let's break right on into this. They poured more bullets into the rocket sentry, which is never a bad direction to go if you intend for your turret to get better. They addressed the fact that the machine gun sentry felt no different than a poor Gatling sentry, so to make up for that, they have increased the frequency in which you will have it in the match by lowering the cooldown, and it moves around a little faster. All sentries have been given an increase to durability, as they seemed to be too easily killed. Now, I disagree with this, because I prefer to kill somebody's turret easily when it starts shooting at me. But that's just personal preference. The HMG emplacement has been given a significant increase in rotation speed, as it was seen as a major drawback. All minefields have been given increased explosive damage. The orbital Gatling barrage has now been increased to a manner which is actually capable of doing something against bigger targets. It's no secret that this thing felt like a sleepy airburst orbital, and there's no given promises that it'll kill a Bile Titan outright, but it's definitely going to hit them significantly harder. Orbital Precision Strike has been given both a lowered cooldown and call-in time, which, fair enough, but I don't see why. I thought we had all come to a consensus that this was considered as the thing used to destroy stationary side objectives, and that was about it. I'm honestly pretty sure this thing just became better than the rail cannon for anybody who can aim it. Airburst also got a decreased cooldown. This result isn't too complicated, you're clearing more basic enemies more often. Rocket pods now hit harder, still not a guaranteed kill, but there's a greater amount of punch behind them in regards to penetration. The Eagle strafing run that used to fall short in regard to radius and damage output has now been given an increase in armor penetration, so it's able to break medium-ish targets now. All in all, that's okay, but there's nothing incredible about it when I was using it. It's fair. They expect to change this in the future some way or another once they get more feedback, same as the rocket pods. Now we can start getting into the weapons. There's one change in particular that I am ecstatic about, and I will make this very much known. The grenade launcher has been given an increased explosion damage, making it more effective against all enemies. The heavy machine gun has been tuned up so that it will motherfuck medium armor enemies with a lower fire rate, faster reload, increased damage, and increased stagger, which in theory also makes ammo last longer, and all around, it's pretty damn good now, especially against bots. The standard machine gun has been given a lower reload time and an additional magazine in efforts to compete with the Stalwart, which is something it has sorely needed for a very long time, and once again, it has made this weapon very good, or at least very usable, as opposed to where it was before. The machine gun sentry, Gatling sentry, and exosuit Gatling gun have been given an overall damage boost in accordance to their ammo type. Basically all rifle rounds have been increased to be more effective against body parts considered durable. This isn't going to be crazy for people who are already hitting weak spots, but it will make bullets count more for those who aren't. The Adjudicator has been given an increased magazine capacity, and like I said before, there's really no downside to increased ammo count. Personally, this has become my favorite weapon against bugs with a large magazine and medium armor penetration. The Tenderizer came out with broken stats, as we all know, and they've pretty much rectified that and put it more in line with intention. It is now about the most precise variant of a Liberator that you can have. If you have a lot of trepidation about using a marksman rifle, but you want to start going in that direction, this would now be a good choice. The Purifier has been given an overall damage increase for armor penetration and the explosion in attempts to make it good in capable hands. I'll be honest, feels like getting in a boxing match after taking 42 Benadryl. I would not recommend doing this. It still cannot one-shot Striders like in the trailer. The crossbow has also been given an explosive increase, making it better at both breaking through medium armor and destroying bug holes or fabricators. As far as primaries are concerned, I find this to be one of the most powerful against bots in the right hands. The only real time it falls short would be long range or against Striders, in that it has to take 2 shots. I expect this to get resolved upon them figuring out that it's not a good idea for Striders to have additional explosive resistance. For our last explosive damage increase, the Eruptor is, well, it's attempting to find its feet again, let's put it that way. For the time being, it feels like you tried to weaponize a dead pig with how slow it is. They're trying to balance out the likelihood of murdering your teammates along with murdering your enemies, but let's be real here. If you blow your teammate up with the gun, it's your fault. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. It can probably be scaled back to where it was. My favorite change that I've seen across everything is the change from those horrific, shitty circle sights to mil-dot scopes with all of the sniper variants. If somebody complains about this, they are objectively wrong. Mil-dot supremacy all the way. The spear also works correctly now in regard to targeting, but it can't break automaton factories anymore. That's intended to be fixed, it is not purposeful. Now on to the point of this entire patch, the monumental quality of life changes. There is now increased reward for lowering yourself to the ground to minimize recoil. If you have not been doing this already, start doing it now. You will notice a difference. Essential personnel defenses and anti-air modifiers are out of the picture for the time being. Super samples will appear on level 6. This is going to be pretty fortunate for people who found level 7 too daunting. Sieve artillery persists through stratagem blocking effects, including the destroyer leaving orbit. Text chat is now available in menus and loading screens, and invite-only lobbies now exist. Fire tornadoes should move more randomly and seem less targeted. When a tornado storm takes place, it will reduce enemy vision, but not your own. Tornadoes are less likely to spawn on things like extraction points. Tremors will occur next to you less often, but with a wider range affecting more enemies. A ton of planets got their visibility reducers like fog knocked down a lot, so it should be easier to see on them. Vegetation big enough to slow you down will make you harder to detect when you're on the inside of it, with a stacking effect occurring with other detection-reducing influences. These next 2 changes will be very important for bug players. That abhorrent acid slowing effect given to you by bugs has been scaled back to 30% instead of 50%, with a 3-second duration that you can also sprint within. There will also be a reduction in the amount of heavily armored enemies occurring on higher difficulties, being replaced by hordes of smaller enemies. Patrol spawning is essentially returned to where it originally was, and one thing I don't see mentioned is that gunships seem to be patrolling higher levels, which I actually quite enjoy. Spewers now get slowed with missing legs, apply the acid effect, and they have also changed the damage in a way where you will not get instantly killed as much. This persists across a couple enemies. Bile Titan heads are slightly less durable. It's nothing crazy, but it makes the railgun better for them. They have also had a tweak in their acid where it instantly kills you less, much like the spewers, but don't stand in it because it will still kill you eventually. Charger behemoths will now arrive on higher difficulties in more influence. They are also a bit stronger than they were before. Hulk flamers will be doing less damage in the same way that acid spewers do. Tank front armor is reduced. You should still be going for heat vents anyway. Automaton jumpers don't instantly kill you upon death anymore, but they will still light you on fire. That about wraps up the direct enemy changes. There is a massive catalog of other fixes that they have made which don't come down to balancing, but instead come down to simple game not being broken anymore problems. And from what I've experienced so far, it seems to have made quality of life better. If you absolutely need me to, I can make a post about them, but realistically, I think it's unnecessary and would be a bore to you. So taking a step back and observing it all, how does this stack up? The game definitely feels different in terms of how it plays and looks. More avenues of weapon and stratagem variety have been opened up. The game absolutely feels more thought out and well-rounded as a result. I would like to say that I feel positive about the majority of this. That is, I don't think a change occurred that was wholly detrimental. Yes, the game got easier, but difficulty was the cost for expansion of options this time, and that freshness is going to keep the game alive for the time being, so I'll accept it. It feels as if the expectation that they had set for themselves wasn't necessarily exceeded, but it definitely was met. I know a lot of us were worried with the growing hype that it would crash out in comparison, so I'm thrilled to see that it didn't. I think the foundation that they've laid here, it serves to really help them further down the line, especially in terms of figuring out how to properly handle things like damage output and breakpoints, because the direction this is going is generally positive. Now we're at the part where I turn it to you. How do you feel they lived up to expectations? How would you feel if this showing was indicative of what the future updates would be like? Things of that nature. With that, I think we should be all wrapped up here. As usual, feel free to join the Discord if you're old enough. I try to manage it as best I can. It's certainly not as insane as the normal Helldivers Discord. And, yeah. Have a good one.